Starting a business at a young age isn't always easy. Today's guest, Esther Timsit, knows exactly what that's like. As the founder and host of SparkBuddies, Esther has created a platform where young entrepreneurs can learn from experienced founders, connect with one another, and realize that age doesn't have to be a barrier to success. In this episode, we talk about Esther's entrepreneurial journey and what she learned from building her first startup, how she grew her podcast by reaching out to incredible guests, and why community, confidence, and financial literacy are so important for young entrepreneurs. Whether you're thinking about starting a business, launching your own project, or you're just looking for inspiration, this conversation is truly full of practical advice and valuable insights. Okay, Esther, start by telling me a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I grew up in many different places. I was born in Singapore, and then around the age of 7, I moved to France. And then at 14, I moved to Waterloo, Canada, which is a suburb of Toronto. And then last year, I moved to Toronto.
Nice. So how did all those moving to different places shape you as a young teenager?
Yeah, honestly, it taught me a lot about adaptability, and I'm able to adapt to different environments and different personalities. And it also taught me how to talk and deal with different people, which I find is a really important skill, especially in business, because you have to connect with people on a deeper level. So that's how it shaped me as a person.
Yeah, definitely. So talk to me a little bit about your entrepreneurship journey. Like, what was your first venture and how did you get to your current podcast today?
Yeah, my first venture was a platform called Trusty Buddy. That didn't go on for long, but it was a platform where you could log on and find a tutor anywhere in the world for very, very cheap. And these tutors wouldn't be professional teachers, they would just be people who know a lot about the industry. However, that didn't take off for long because of technical problems and also the fact that not a lot of people had the time to sign up. Throughout that venture, and also I had many small ventures as a kid, like the basic jewelry business or the slime business. But what I realized was that teenagers weren't taken seriously in the business industry, especially women. Nobody wanted to partner with teenagers or with me. And also last summer, I had this venture called PokeShare at a summer camp for 4 weeks. And it was incredibly hard to get investors because nobody trusted a group of teenagers with their money. So that's when I came up with the podcast SparkBuddies. SparkBuddies is a platform where teenagers can come seek advice from other teenagers, and it's a place where teenagers learn to act as a community of business owners. So it's where I post newsletters teaching how to build a business, how to build a website, or where I interview other young entrepreneurs to teach other young entrepreneurs about business.
Oh, that's really inspiring. What is the biggest entrepreneurship lesson you learned from starting all these ventures and these businesses?
The biggest lesson is don't be afraid to reach out. So for my interviews, I had to do a lot of cold emailing and I got a lot of rejections or I didn't get responses most of the time. But through pushing and pushing, I was able to get a winner of a competition called Blue Ocean or people from across the world living in Singapore, India. And I feel that the mistake that I did with my past ventures with not getting investors or sponsors is because I didn't reach out and I was too scared to put myself out there. So that's the number one lesson I learned.
So put yourself out there. What specific problem are you trying to solve with your new podcast, Spark Buddies? You mentioned it a little bit, but could you go more in depth about that?
Yeah, the problem I'm trying to solve, it's mostly teenagers not being taken seriously in business. But instead of solving that problem and making adults believe in teenagers, my idea was to create a community of young entrepreneurs that could come together to seek help. So if they need help on anything, they could either help on the newsletter or we have a Discord that they can get on to ask other entrepreneurs for advice. So that's a new solution I came up with.
Nice. What is the most memorable interview that you've had and why through your podcast?
The most memorable interview I had was with a winner of the Blue Ocean competition called Laila Mokhtari. And she owns a soap business where there's little toys incorporated in the soaps to get children to motivate to wash their hands. And that interview was particularly memorable because she taught me, so she was able to get a Blue Ocean judge on her project as an investor and as a partner. And she taught me that she started completely from zero, but by really putting herself out there, she was able to find incredible people like that to join her on her adventure. And also how she did it was through building a personal connection with this judge. So she incorporated stories from her personal life or things that she knew would grab the judge's attention or make a personal connection with them. And that was something that I never thought about before, to put a personal story from my life to connect with people. But that's something that she taught me, and it's something that has been working out for me.
Wow, great. So, like, kind of to summarize, a big lesson that you've learned from her is to put yourself out there and use a personal connection when you are giving your business speech or putting yourself out there. Yeah. Okay, great. So, I wanted to ask you, through starting your podcast, how do you actually go about it and what's the process? Like, how do you outreach and how do you choose who to be on your podcast?
Yeah, so I first went through people that I knew. So I did a camp last summer called Launch X, and it was just a full entrepreneurship camp, and there were so many young entrepreneurs there. So I reached out to a lot of them, and a few of them agreed to be on my podcast. So start off with people that you already know. And then after that, I cold emailed winners of competitions. So Blue Ocean, Diamond Challenge, Conrad Challenge, even some DECA winners. And I was able to get a few of them on. And then also through outreach of people that I knew people who lived in India or Singapore who had businesses. So I contacted them and I got them on my podcast. So it's a lot of cold emailing, but it's also make sure to use your resources and use the people around you to get connected.
Yeah, so what's the biggest takeaway that you've learned from outreach?
People don't tend, I mean, the worst they can say is no. And that's really honest because most of the time they either agree or you get ignored. So there's nothing that can be worse than that. So don't be scared to put yourself out there and don't be scared to really try and sell yourself. Even if it sounds like too much, nothing is too much.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, through your entrepreneurship ventures, you've obviously had to deal with a lot of finances. And so, my podcast generally focuses a lot more like on finances and how women can know finance and be financially literate before they graduate high school. And so, what is a financial habit you think every teen should develop before graduating high school?
I think there's two main financial habits. The first one is investing. Because of compound growth, then just investing $20 a month can really take you far, especially as a teenager, to prepare for your future. And second is budgeting. You should always know where your money goes, how much you spend, and how much you earn, because again, that can really help you prepare for the future and that can help you save up for your future wants or needs.
hmm And kind of like a follow-up question, when you're investing, how should you go about it? Because I think investing is, at least for me as a teenager, I see that as like a very high level thing, and I'm not sure how to actually go into it and get started with it. So, probably as an investor, how would you say the easiest way to get started with investing is?
The easiest way, I'd say, there's so many resources out there to help you because a lot of people feel like you. A lot of people feel like it's a really high level thing. But there's so many resources, and especially the news helps a lot. So make sure to keep up with the news. You can watch different videos or even ask the people around you. Nowadays, a lot of adults have gotten into investing. So just asking for guidance to adults, the people around you, that can really help.
Definitely. And I really liked your concept of budgeting. I think that's super important. Knowing where your money goes in a business, especially if you're a young entrepreneur, it can be really hard to just surpass that sometimes. So, yeah. Okay, so like I've said, you have a lot of business experience and you're still a high schooler. So, how do you balance school, your work, and your personal life as well?
Honestly, Google Calendar has been my best friend throughout all this. I make sure to really plan my time accordingly. So what I would do throughout the year is the weekends were for projects, were for SparkBuddies. And then during the school week, I would focus studying or extracurriculars. And then I'd usually have my meetings. So if I had any meetings, those would be scheduled after 6 p.m. just to make sure I can spend my entire day focused on my projects or school. Yeah, that's how I'd plan my time.
So, what's one big lesson that you've learned through all of this balancing your school and your work and your personal life? Like, what is something that helps you stay down to earth and not go crazy while managing all of this?
I think one big lesson that I've learned is make sure to not cut your friends out of your life or your family. Because when I was studying a lot, especially during exam weeks and when Spark Buddies was just taking off, I basically just became a machine. I was working all the time. And I realized that that was really kind of taking over me. And make sure to make time to hang out with your friends or your family, which I know sounds basic, but it can really help, especially to just take your mind off things sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, lastly, what advice would you give to a young woman who wants to be an entrepreneur or who wants to start a business?
Don't be scared of male dominated sectors. This is especially for women. Nowadays, business or finances are really heavily male dominated. But throughout my experience in business, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. And also, women, we're a really strong community. I go to an all girls school and it's a really strong community. Don't be afraid to ask for help because, 99% of the time they'll say yes. And to males who have been in that sector for a long time too, they don't tend to bite. So don't be afraid to ask for help to them either. Really just put yourself out there and put your ideas out there.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great piece of advice. And I think that, especially in business, it's a lot more male dominated than female dominated. And so putting yourself out there really helps, and exactly what you said. So thanks so much, Esther. It was really nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you too. Thank you for having me on.